Welcome everyone to Overcoming Obstacles to Good Mental Health in the Workplace. This is a virtual roundtable, so it's going to be interactive. Please don't be alarmed if I ask you to turn your cameras on and to come off mute and join in the discussion. This is an opportunity for you to ask those questions and get answers from those professionals in the mental health space, as well as your peers and colleagues in HR. What you can expect from today, we'll do quick welcome and introduction so you'll know who I am and my colleagues. I'll give you an update as to what workplace wellbeing is, and then we'll have some roundtable discussions. I'm going to share with you 3 steps to challenging the status quo, and then we'll get your key takeaways, and I'll aim to finish this within 90 minutes. Depending on how many questions you ask and how interactive the discussion is. So without further ado, just a bit of background as to the company that we have founded and work for, Aurora Wellness. For those of you who don't know, it's a mental health and wellbeing consultancy. And we deliver a range of personal development programs for organizations to strengthen their employees' mental resilience and therefore improve workplace productivity. Because we know that good mental health and well-being is as fundamental to life as good physical health, and that you cannot focus on one and to the exclusion of the other. So we know that if an organization wants to make the most out of their employees as a resource, they're going to need to support them both physically and mentally. And we use our Pause, Think, Act model in workshops. We develop one-to-one group coaching programs. We also deliver strategy on person and in person and online. And we work with individuals and corporates. And this is because we have a really simple mission. It's to enable good mental health and well-being in the workplace for you as HR professionals and leaders in your business and for all your people. So, hi, my name's Ngazi. I'm a management training consultant. I'm a mental health first aider. I'm a speaker and a coach. And I have over 15 years corporate experience before I became an entrepreneur. And my journey was never going to be this. I was never planning on becoming a mental health advocate, consultant, coach, but it all came about as a result of my own experience with depression and mental ill health. So I was working for the world's largest oil and gas company. I joined them since I was a graduate, and I had high hopes of having a glittering career and rising through the ranks. And actually, ultimately, I wanted to be Secretary General of the United Nations. I won't lie, that was my ambition. But life got in the way. And what happened was I hit what I now recognize is the brown ceiling. So I had risen the ranks and reasonably rapidly, but there was no way I was going to go any further. And I, being a plucky kid, I was very determined that I could be the one to break through that ceiling. I could work harder. I could prove my worth. I could just try more, give more of myself, so that I could be valued as I felt like I should be. And what that meant was working all sorts of hours, saying yes when I absolutely should have said no. It meant being always available, always on. And what that led to was being always worried, always anxious, always thinking I hadn't done enough. It was not uncommon for me to come home, feed the kids tea, make dinner for my husband, and eat mine whilst working, from 7 till 1:30, and then just going to bed and getting up again at 6:30 and doing the same thing again. That was a norm at times. And I knew it wasn't healthy, but I didn't think I had another option. And I kept thinking, I just have to get through it. But when that didn't result in any progression for me, because that brown ceiling just didn't budge, I recognized that I'd internalized a lot of these feelings of inadequacy and not enoughness. And what that meant was that I didn't feel like I was worthy of life, ultimately. I didn't feel that I had enough to contribute to this world to justify the precious oxygen I was using up. And I used to fantasize about killing myself, about ways I can kill myself and make it look like an accident, so that my family wouldn't feel guilty and my kids could move on and my husband could remarry and they would have insurance money and they'd be set because I was not doing a good enough job. And it took a really catastrophic breakdown for that to come out, the truth to come out, for me to I was going to say to seek help. That's not true. To be forced to get help, to receive help, for which I'm so grateful now, and medical treatment and intervention. And when I recovered from that, I recognized that actually there was so many points along the way that I could have been helped if someone had recognized the signs that were there. And so I teamed up with my business partner, Obi, who will introduce herself, to found Aurora, so that the kind of help and support that was so absent in my time of need is available for others. So that's my story, and that's why I am here. Obi?
Hi everyone. My name is Obehi Alafode, Obi for short, and I'm Nguidi's cousin. My background is in psychology and stress management, and so for the past, well, 11 years now, I have worked with people with addiction and common mental health issues like anxiety and depression, and so this has been my work for a long time. Up until Ngaji, who is my cousin, I don't know if she mentioned it earlier, but she's my first cousin. And when that happened to her, it did change my outlook on how people were getting supported in the workplace, especially corporate, and how the loss of talent like her, the investment that would have gone into training her, equipping her, all of that stuff just gone like that. And I don't think that companies recognize how much loss they could do. They're not measuring that loss particularly. But even more importantly, wanting to support people like Ngozi so that they recognize that they can ask for help earlier, but there was no way you can ask for help when you don't know where the help might come from, and also to be able to educate her managers, people like her managers who could have spotted the signs earlier but could not spot it, and wouldn't have known what to do with that even if they knew something was wrong. And that's because it was a culture of not understanding mental health in general and mental wellness in general, misunderstanding what it is, the stigma attached to it. So my work that I do with Ngozi is to help organizations, to help HR leaders like you guys in the call and directors, to ensure that you design effective and robust mental well-being strategies that can support your employee. You lose them. When you lose them, it costs you money. And it's very difficult right now to not even just find new talent, but to retain the ones we've got. It's something that we're currently concerned about. And so if we can help you guys to not be that statistic of people leaving your organization and not returning, because you don't have the right culture, then we want to be able to support you to do that. Just like, and in a way, bypass it, in effect, trying to support women like Ngozi or people like her. Like if we had to do a do-over, then she would probably still remain in oil and gas. She probably would still be rising the rank, but you will be doing it in a way that was authentic and she didn't have to hide bits of herself. That's my goal, really. So thank you all for being here today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Okay, so mental health in the workplace. Why is it still the elephant in the room? Because everybody's talking about mental health. So is it the elephant in the room? Well, the statistics say, yeah, people are still hiding their issues at work. So Jane Muston, who's the clinical director of Vita Health Group, says stigma and fear remain the two most common blockers to talking about mental well-being openly, both within the workplace and within our society, which does surprise me a little bit, because I keep hearing so much about mental health awareness week, mental health awareness day, National Stress Month. There's so much talk. Is there still stigma and fear? Well, apparently so. And only a positive and open workplace culture can resolve these things. And that's because we're talking about safety from an individual level, physical and psychological safety. So physical safety is well understood. We expect an employee to come into our workplace, whether that be an office or a factory or a studio, and to leave in the exact same physical state, if not better, right? We expect that. That's what we mean by safety. Psychological safety, however, is a new concept for us in the UK, and certainly a new concept in the workplace. And it is this shared belief that you're not going to be penalized for speaking up or speaking out about anything to do with your experience in the workplace or your personal experience. And it's something that's become more and more important to individuals, that they feel that they can talk about this. This is that open workplace culture that we're talking about. It's necessary if we're to give people the freedom so they can tap into the most creative and innovative parts of their brain, and they're not worried about just doing the job. So the World Economic Forum thinks that the cost of mental disorders globally is going to reach 16 trillion by 2030 if it continues at this rate. 16, not billion, trillion, which is more than the cost of diabetes, respiratory disorders, and cancer. So it's going to be the single largest health issue in less than 10 years. That's shocking. Is nobody else shocked? Because I am. I'm still shocked by that stat. Mental health and burnout, then, they're a risk to your company because operationally it is difficult for you to find someone to replace an employee who's off or had to exit the business. It is a challenge. We all know, hands up who's struggling with recruitment, because we all know the Great Resignation and the impact of COVID has made even retaining staff difficult, never mind recruiting staff. But then it's also difficult from a health and personal development perspective for that employee who you recruited for a good reason, who you have projected a career path for, and now there's an issue that that's hampering their progression because of their mental health. Employees are concerned as well. Work-life balance, mental health, and burnout are the top three, or three of the top 5 employee well-being concerns. What's not in there is pay. And 67% of organizations, they are recognizing stress as having the biggest impact on business performance. 2/3. So, and I presume that's why you're all here. You know that stress impacts your employees' performance. You know that stress has an impact on the success of an individual, therefore of a team, therefore of a department, therefore of an organization. It's logical, but what are we doing about it?
I've got a question. Is there anybody in this room who does not buy this stats at all? Who is not experienced? It's one thing to see numbers, another thing to know, I don't know what the story behind the number is. Is there anybody in this room that cannot equate it to what's happening in their own organization now? okay, to all of you recognize when we say 65%, in other words, you're saying that when you get the complaint come through to HR and people who are off sick, stress is being cited as number one. Is that correct in your organization as we speak right now? Lisa, I can see you nodding. That's correct? Okay, just checking, because like sometimes they get this number, but is there a story to back it up? But yeah, to all of you agree with it. Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
We get a mix of we get, I recognise the numbers and I think they're probably right, but we get a mix now. We're seeing a shift for the last couple of years where a shift from where it's claimed to be work-related stress to non-work-related stress.
Aha. And are you able to specify what non-related stress means? Non-work related.
Not without breaking it down by the individual, no. But
Got
yeah,
it.
there's been a real shift, whereas, and they're kind of fairly similar patterns now.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
I would agree with Joe. There's definitely been a shift, and I think COVID has a lot to do with that, in terms of we've had 2 years where actually all of a sudden we have worked from home and we've invited work almost into our homes, haven't we? You know, we've sat at screens where you can see your children, you can see your partner, everything that's going on. You know, there's been loss, there's been grief, there's been all sorts kind of over the last 2 years. And I think there's then become that complete blurred line of actually there's no longer a work-home life. You know, it's just life. And actually employees expect work now to be involved in that, and actually not necessarily have a duty of care, but it's something that their employer should be concerned about as well.
And I think that's such a valid point, Anna. Do you guys agree? Do you feel that it is your responsibility, regardless of whether it's work or non-work related stress, Joe?
Sorry, I was struggling to find the unmute button.
That's okay.
I echo those comments as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, we're all on the same page.
Question. Sorry, just on the stats. Was that pre-pandemic or post?
No, 2021.
No, yeah.
Wow.
It was 2021.
So why we were in the eye of it? Yeah.
The work-life balance one, and I think going back to Anna's point, I think we've seen kind of a better balance throughout the pandemic in terms of work-life balance, and that not being reported as a well-being concern.
As a concern. So what concerns are you getting, Lisa?
Stress. Yeah. Stress and depression is our biggest one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And interesting enough, stress and depression, because when you break down the stress, some of it is the work-life balance situation. It's just that how we define work-life balance has been, how do I know I'm working harder and I'm being able to adjust to things at home and stuff like that. It's all stress. It's just it feels like a tidy way, like you can control it by splitting it into work and life at home. But actually, it's all stress. And what stress you at home will automatically affect work. What stress you at work will automatically affect you at home, because we're not robots. We are living, breathing things. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Cool.
Thank you, guys. So there is a difference between how employees and employers are seeing this whole well-being thing. So only 36% of employees think that well-being, mental well-being, is a priority for their employer, and here's a critical thing, and that they genuinely care. That's a third. 26% say that although it appears to be a big priority, they don't feel that their employer really cares. And 28% feel that their employer approaches mental well-being either sporadically or as a low priority. Anyone surprised by those figures? No. But us as employers, 79% say mental well-being is a big priority for us. It is. But 11% aren't sure how to support their employees, and 10% felt it's not my place, particularly for the stuff that's not work related. It's none of my business to support them. I care, but I don't have to show I care. So if you've got this discrepancy, is it any surprise that we haven't actually address the elephant in the room correctly. We're kind of dancing around it.
I think the only thing I would comment about that is, I think to some degree there will always be a discrepancy between what employers and employees think, purely just because of it's from their point of view. An employee will obviously know from, straight away, in terms of, I'm struggling with my mental health, it's more relevant to them, in terms of it's there all the time, they're constantly thinking about it. For an employer, that's very difficult then to kind of show from day dot that they're supporting. And I think particularly given that a lot of employers, they're on a journey, I wouldn't say many employers are at all there, and even then it's always a journey, isn't it? So I think for some time there will be a bit of discrepancy.
But it shouldn't be this. This is
it is very far apart at the moment. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a gulf. And in fact, I can even give an example. Literally last week, with one of the clients we're working with, had contacted us because they wanted support for one of their team, one of the leadership and stuff, and that was fine, and they did all that. But there was some concern that he wasn't getting support, and then they was like, oh no, but he got EAP support, and he wanted a clinical psychologist, and I had to go and rope in Dr. Julie. Anyway, long story short, turned out he didn't really need that. But when I asked him, I did an assessment and asked him, so what was the support you got from EAP? Because apparently you've had some support. And he goes, yeah, I had a call. He had one call, then he asked for another call, and then it turns out you have to call back, so it was a helpline. So, employer think they've offered something in the form of support to address whatever anxiety or they need. The employee's result is one phone call and a telephone helpline. That's two different angles of the thing. But if you ask the employee, did you get support? Did you offer support? Yes, I did. If you ask the client or the employee, did they offer support? They offered something. Was it effective? No. And the only reason why that kicked off is because then they would not have been helped for 6 months. So the problem that was a small issue got bigger. So by the time they called me, they were in a panic situation. But I couldn't understand. I don't understand. You said he'd had support from EAP. So why this escalate? I don't understand. Turns out they actually have it. They had a different viewpoint of the support that they believed that he was getting. Nobody actually asked him, how many calls did you actually get? And what exactly did the therapy say to you? No, they just assumed he's gotten it, tick. So this is how easy a discrepancy like 79% of employers saying they're doing something or they care and they've made all this adjustment, and the actual employee who experiencing is saying this is not the case. And because we're not asking the right question, we're definitely not putting them in the same room together. So this is an example of what I mean by how that will play out in real life. I hope that's helpful to hear.
Oh, absolutely. It's a breakdown in communication, isn't it?
There we go.
There's no communication there.
Absolutely. So do they care? Yes, they did. They drank all the calling and all the calling and me calling Dr. Julie. That was care. It was chaos care, but it was unnecessary. It was just, they just didn't know. They're completely communicating on the wrong end of the spectrum. So that's what I would say there. Thank you. So this is why we have more than 1 in 3 employees still having undisclosed mental health issues. Some of them don't even know. So it's not like I'm just hiding it from my boss. I'm hiding it from my people. I'm not. Sometimes some people don't actually know. They're going through the motion, and they think it's just what's happening to me right now. So the guy we talked about, it took 6 months for that to come up for him. Well, in that way.
I can attest to it. I didn't at any stage think I was depressed. I just thought I was crap. I just thought this is what it is to be human. Meanwhile, everybody who loved me is like, yeah, she's been a bit up and down. She's not like herself. But I'm like, oh, that's just normal life. But there are those people who know that they have an issue. There is a stage at which you know you're not yourself, let's say. You know that you could do with help. but you still say nothing at work. And why? So 70% of employees say they are worried about talking about their health issue because of the impact it could have on their career progression or their working relationships. That's sad. So you have ranges from 29% saying they're worried about their team, would think they couldn't do their job, or they're worried they would lose their job, right down to worried about losing friendships with colleagues, 9% of people. That's sad. That is very sad to me, that you're worried that talking about it will so impact your standing in the company that you would lose friends. So that's why we've got all this secrecy. And so those are the obstacles to change that we need to face. Why we haven't managed to tackle mental health, because we've known for a couple of years it's getting catastrophic. We've gone from 1 in 10 diagnosable mental health conditions in the UK to 1 in 4. But it's not seeming to slow down. Well, Westfield Health Divided Together report found that 35% of HR leaders across the UK have increased their well-being budget. That's quite good. That's brilliant. And the same percentage planning to continue investing in the future. So that's 79% of people employees who care. Some of them are actually putting this into practice, putting their money where their mouth is. But there's a fundamental lack of senior management support in many organizations, which is being a barrier to well-being investment. So I was talking to a potential client today who would be in this category. Do they consider mental well-being a priority in their organization? Yes, they do. They've got well-being champions and MHFAs. They've got a reasonable ratio of that. They've started this process. Have they increased their well-being budget? They didn't have a well-being budget 2 years ago when I started speaking to them. They now have a well-being budget. How much is the well-being budget? £500 a quarter. Not per person, for the entire organization every 3 months. So does the organization consider mental well-being a priority? Oh yes, the employer can say, we've got a well-being budget, we've got a well-being team, we've got this as a priority. But the person who is tasked with rolling out and implementing that has both hands tied behind her back because of a lack of senior management support, enabling her to invest properly into mental health support for her organization. So over 400 leaders in HR were surveyed, and they found that the biggest barriers to well-being implementation were lack of senior management buy-in, limited budgets, interestingly enough, limited interest from employee population, and then lack of time to implement or devise strategies. Do you guys recognize any of these as barriers for you?
I
in your organization?
Yeah,
which one, Joe?
All of them. To be honest with you, but I say that going back to Anna's point that organisations are on a journey, and we're at the start of our journey, really. But at the minute, we haven't got a budget, but it's something that we will need to look at. We've got some lack of buy-in in some areas that we'll need to address and try and change. We've definitely got limited interest from employees as well. So I can see all of those in varying different degrees, and all of them we need to tackle.
Yeah. And how, Lisa, hi.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, not speaking from a number of organisations, I think if there's a difference between kind of talking the talk and walking the walk, and even big budgets, you know, that are thrown into this space, and really beautiful glossies around and support processes, there's a massive difference to that, to managers and senior leaders actually role modelling behaviour and actually leading from the front. And I think you see it across many organisations that there's still not that buy, so it's that buy-in and interest piece to me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on, and that's why I'm really looking forward to finding out what all of your views are on how you're trying to secure that kind of buy-in and what we can do about it. Because all of us in this room understand the need. If you are in human resources, you know the consequences of ignoring mental health issues and concerns. You're fully apprised of how things like workplace bullying, harassment, poor performance, inconsistency with absences and things like that lead to disciplinaries and people leaving the business that didn't necessarily need to, take up too much time, and fundamentally drag performance down of the overall organization. We all know it, but we still seem to be having to persuade people that it's an important thing. So I've got a poll for you, and I'd love you to tell us what the biggest, I'll stop sharing the screen now for a second. What the biggest barrier it is that you face in your organization? Just choose one. Toughie. But I want to see how our figures compare with those. Everybody who wanted to answered? Yeah. Okay. So this is how we're looking. So good thing that that's only a few who are struggling with the things like buy-in or time or budget. And the majority, it's knowledge and understanding what to do, which is great because we can help you with that one. We can help you with what to do and how to do it and even when. But for those struggling with buy-in, time or budget, oh, okay. Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we still need to find a way to overcome this. And that's what the whole purpose of this roundtable is. So thank you for that. Let's go back to my screen. Okay, so now the roundtable discussion piece. If good employee mental health and well-being is a priority for your business, then what is stopping you? I want us to just answer this simple question, and we'll just do it all together, because or do you think we should break into breakout rooms, Obes?
Oh, I think it's good if we all talk it together now. I think it makes sense to stay. Yeah.
I want to know, you've seen the poll, you've answered the question, you know what your biggest barrier is. What steps have you taken to address these barriers? That biggest barrier, whether it was knowing what to do, getting buy-in, getting time, getting budget.
Actually, I would love you to let me know what the barrier was for you, and then what steps you've taken. That would give us more richer context. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yvonne, you want to start first? So what has been your barrier, and what steps have you taken?
Okay, so before we let me just say, before this became part of our modus operandi, the barrier was in knowing how to implement it, or how to implement well-being, so that it was actually effective. Like you said, Obi, you know, it's one thing to tick a box, but if you have an EAP, for example, that's not effective, that's not actually addressing an issue. It's just ticking a box. So the barrier for us was in the how and what. Once we approached it, it then became very integral to our business. And I say this because we are an Investors in People accredited organization, and we have silver accreditation. And it's actually strange not to have well-being. So I think if people really value their staff and they really want the high performance that they're seeking in their organizations, it's paramount. The minute you onboard somebody, you should be thinking about, okay, where do I signpost them to for certain things, such as an employee assistance program? How do I get them motivated? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can I reward them if I've set them a specific thing to do? These are things that are integral to your business. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute, but it's been a journey. It's not something that we knew how to do from day one, because we were a small business to begin with, but we've grown over time, and we've been operating now for about 12, 13 years. But it is so key because we see the impact that this makes on our staff. And as a result, sorry, go on.
No, I'm going to ask you, Yvonne, because Yvonne, as the CEO of a company, because at the end of the day, you are the C-suite, you are the leadership.
That's right, yeah.
That people have to convince about that. And it's interesting that you are here as the director of a company, and for those of you HR, is how could they, HR, who's in charge of the people,
yes,
convince you, the senior leadership, that actually this is important? What would help in that case? So that's where they find themselves right now. It's I have to convince senior leadership.
I know.
You are the senior leadership, so you can, when you make a decision, it goes.
Absolutely. It's a good question, because I was going to say it's down to the leadership. If your leader doesn't get it, then you're really just kind of going against the brick wall. It's so important that you get the buy-in from the decision maker, who ultimately will approve budgets for this. I think you need to give them examples. I mean, I can speak from my own experience, just like Ngozi talked about how she felt in the corporate world. I knew what it was like to work in an organization. I worked in management consultancy, and, you know, there's this subliminal pressure of I need to achieve, I need to do this, but I also knew I didn't feel comfortable in such environments. So for me, my thing was that if I ever run a business or start a business, I want it to be the best place that anybody goes to, so that they feel at home. So it's really down to the, let me say, the insight of the CEO to really understand. If things have been smooth sailing for them from day one, they may not really understand what it's like to feel challenges in the workplace. So it's about finding some kind of common ground with your leader to say, look, this is what I think is important and why, and give them examples. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't get it. But even with that, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee.
Thank you for that, Yvonne. Yvonne, you said your biggest obstacle was knowing what to do. So how did you overcome that?
Well, basically, we worked towards the Investors in People framework, which gave us guidelines as to how to implement well-being initiatives. So we looked at psychological well-being, social well-being. It was broken down into various categories. And we said, okay, who would be in charge of social activities? And it doesn't have to be really expensive things. It can be just, having a fruit bowl like we do in our workplace. Somebody's the fruit bowl champion. They order the fruits depending on the season. And, when you walk into the office, there's a nice fruit basket there, and everyone feels, oh, I can just tap into that, and it makes a difference. You've got to look at what you can actually do, what you can actually afford first and foremost, and then just take baby steps. You don't have to do everything. Just start with a few. Test the temperature with your staff as well. We have employee engagement surveys twice a year to see where things are with people, and that helps you evolve, and it just becomes part of your culture, really.
Thank you. That's really good advice. I love the baby steps.
Mm.
Because it is one step at a time. We so often see a big problem and think we've got to address it straight away.
Exactly.
Let's go for the big hitters, but
Yes.
it's actually more important that you do it strategically. I'm always saying, do it
That's right.
strategically.
Yeah.
First of all, figure out what the problems are and what you
Yes.
need to address,
That's
and
right.
then do what is within your power and capability to do.
Exactly.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
And what's good for your business may not be good for another.
That's
You
the
know,
thing.
we're a mental health provider. So I think because we understand mental health a lot, we know that in order to look after our vulnerable adults who are our clients, we need to make sure we look after our staff who will deliver that quality of care. But you know, you have to look at the right things for your business. So for example, we have Employee of the Month. That could work across many businesses. But then some companies reward their staff with a holiday after 10 years of service, maybe. That's not something we might be able to afford, but we could say, okay, we will give you £10 for every year you've been with us, and that would be £100 voucher, gift voucher, for example, you know.
And actually, one of the things, because we talked about it before all of you joined, because Yvonne came in earlier, about supporting with what you have. And I think that's the point. You know, whatever budget you get given, you use it to the best of your ability. The problem comes when people make assumptions about what their people want. So even Yvonne saying, oh, the food bowl, some people are like, okay, what the food bowl going to do? It depends on the service and the teams that work there.
Yeah.
And the quality of the relationship that they had, and how what the food bowl represents is not the food. It was about somebody cared enough to know that the kind of work that Yvonne's staff will do, they can go round for a few days without lunch or a break. Because they're dealing with patients who need help. So that food represents stop for a minute. That's what that is. So it's not the food bowl. So I don't want to go and repeat a food bowl, or repeat like a lot of big companies saying, oh, give your whole staff a well-being day. They don't all need the well-being day. You bankrupt your business if you're a small business for giving everybody time. That's ridiculous. So the idea is, whatever budget you get, do not need that. I know we've talked about the other person who got 500 a quarter. What's you going to do with it? They can be smart with that 500.
Yes.
I would suggest that you get consulting with that 500 for a quarter. Because to make the best use of it. As opposed to 500, that's a lot of food. To be fair. But is that the best? Is that what the team? Is that what the people who said they needed from you? If it could be a talk, that could get you 500. Might get you a talk from one of their own. To say, by the way, could you deliver something? We'll give you this money to help us get something done.
Right.
So it still comes down to, who are you asking and what are your people saying to you? And that's how you go small steps. So I love, Yvonne, thank you so much.
Yeah,
some
you
people
need
think
to.
you have to have all the money in the world. You do not have to have all the money in the world, but you do need to use the money smartly.
And involve your team. Don't just tell them this is what we want to do. Just say, this is what we're thinking of doing. What do you think? And then take it from there. And then you will get buy-in from your colleagues. And when they actually want to champion things, that's when you know you've got employee engagement. And that in itself will drive what you're trying to achieve. So take on your leaders, then get HR involved, which is what we did. Plan, present, and then implement, but in partnership with your team. That, for us, we find that that's what makes the culture inclusive, because we're not dictating to people. We're saying, look, we want to achieve this. What do you think, and how can we do it together?
Yvonne, thank you so much.
I know you got to go. Thank you so much.
It's nice to meet you all, and I wish you a lovely rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, who wants to go next? Who wants to share next? I know that was powerful from Yvonne, but who wants to go next? What is the barrier for you, and how have you tried to solve it? Or even if you haven't tried to solve it yet, just tell us what it would support you.
I'm happy to jump in next, Yvonne.
Thank you, Joe.
I think what we found, we're a group of 7 colleges, the length and breadth of England, and we did an awful lot to look after well-being of students, but not a great deal for staff. Some ad hoc bits and pieces, little bits of half-day well-being days and things like that, but nothing consistent. And what really came to light during the the pandemic was, we needed to really start thinking about what we could do for staff. So we are very much at the start of our journey, really. So what we've done to date is we've kind of developed a wellbeing strategy, looking at the next 3 years and what things we want to put into place. And we've set up local wellbeing boards in each college to try and get some focus and impetus and interest and drive forward the wellbeing strategy locally, because picking up what Obey was saying, what might work in one area might not be the best course of action in another area, because they'll be dealing with different issues. So we've got that set up. It hasn't been set up in all areas. We're struggling to get some interest in a couple of those areas, but we'll continue pushing that. And then we're going to, starting next week, I'm going to host a kind of a group-wide wellbeing board where we're going to bring the leads from each college in to say, right, this is the strategy. How is that being impacted locally? What are you doing around these different issues? And what can we share as best practice? What's worked really well for you? It's been a great idea that someone else might benefit from somewhere else. So very much at the start of the journey, but something we see is really quite critical. And we've got our next engagement survey starting on Monday. So it'll be interesting to see what results we get back from wellbeing and see whether we've moved forward anywhere from last year, because wellbeing was one of the things that was really highlighted quite strongly last year. So in the sense that
what?
Psychological safety was thing. It was interesting actually, because it was like, do you think this is a psychologically safe place to work? We didn't score particularly well, but then a different question was, my manager cares about my mental health and well-being, and scored really highly. So that was a bit of a contradiction for us, really. But in reaction to that, what we did, we developed the wellbeing strategy, we set up the wellbeing boards, we're trying to push that and implement it. So it'd be interesting to see if we've made any improvement on the survey results when they come out. But we've got a lot of work to do. So if we do, I think I'm only expecting baby steps as an improvement. We really need to push on this next year to make further improvements.
So what is the...
Oh, sorry, I was just going to make a point there on, as you say, those two different questions and the different answers you got from them. And I wonder whether actually that's not too uncommon, because actually what you can have is you can have a manager who's a great manager and on a personal level definitely cares about their mental well-being, yet you can have an organization which is under significant, budget pressures, staff recruitment pressures, etc., which actually means the workload itself is potentially, having an impact in terms of their mental well-being. So whilst individual managers, they may well take the view that, oh yes, my manager definitely cares, but actually I'm in this system which actually the college as a whole hasn't tackled the issues maybe.
Yeah, you're right, Anna.
That's exactly it. Because psychological safety, as you saw in the definition, is all about the collective belief that this is a safe place for me to work and to speak my truth. So my manager, I might get on really well with you, Joe. I might trust you. I might go to your houses. I could be your kid's godmother. But I don't know anything about the people above you. And when I go into the office, I don't know about the people around me. So I still don't feel psychologically safe, but I have a good relationship with you. The confusion comes with, if everybody has a good relationship with their managers, then who is it that they're not sure of? It's the anonymous other. It's the institution. What does the institution say about how we value you as an employee? That's the message that you need to be checking. Is that clear? And that comes through in terms of investment, in terms of policy, in terms of the real leadership and how they have conducted themselves, what they are demonstrating on their values. Are they're talking the talk? Are they walking the walk as well? So yeah, I think that's great. What I was going to ask you, Joe, was, so what's the biggest obstacle facing you at the moment? Because you mentioned all of them.
I think for me, just personally for me, I think I need to push forward on this now and really get the impetus behind this and really get people pushing forward on it. The difficulty and the challenge that I've got in this is the people that are leading on this in their local areas are doing this because they're interested and they want to make a difference, but it's on top of their day job. And that's a challenge as well. So it's trying to find that right balance where they feel it doesn't all fall onto them. There's a collective and we're looking to generate ideas and suggestions, and we can then share the workload and make, try and put things in place, and then hopefully I'll start to reap the benefits from it.
Have you got budget?
Not this year, but hopefully next year. That's not saying we haven't got any budget at all. We do have some budget, but is it a true wellbeing budget? No, but we can tap into it from CIPD budgets and things like that, and we've got mental health first aid training and
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And is it on top of your day job? You coordinating all of this, is that on top of your day job?
Yes.
And why are you doing it?
Sorry,
I feel like I'm grilling you.
I'm passionate about it because I can really see the benefit this can have as an organisation, and it's people related. Okay,
so I'm going to be really bold and say, Joe, book a call with me at the end of this. Let's see if I can help. Because the one thing is, you're not the puppet master, but kind of, you are the director of all of this. If you're really clear, and the people who you're directing have to have the autonomy to do whatever they need to do in their organization. But if they're doing this on top of their normal job, that's that creative, innovative thinking that they need to tap into. They might not have the headspace for it. So the best thing is for you to say, here is the plan that we've outlined. Feel free to adjust as is necessary, but take away the need for them to spend time they don't have working out stuff. So wise investment for you would be, how can I come up with an overarching plan that's likely to be able to work in all of these organizations to deliver the key objective that I've identified for us as an institution, and then cascade that down and support them in implementing it in their local college. That seems to me the only way you're going to get this to work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, brilliant. Sorry to strong arm you there.
Okay, who's next? Anybody else want to share? We're going to get this is one of the invited roundtable is an opportunity for you to pick our brains. There's the reason why we're here and it's a small group today, which is why I absolutely love, because you can say what you need to say. I just occurred to me that it's still recording, so don't worry, we never share it. So if you can stop the recording, like that would be awesome. I just didn't realize it was still carrying on. So the purpose of this is to